Welcome, everyone. We're here today with John Wasserman. John is the current division manager for Cutco and Vector Marketing in the Powerhouse Division, headquartered Eastern Pennsylvania and Southern New Jersey. His office is located just near Philadelphia. John's been in the Vector Cutco business since 1991. And he has been one of the most prolific developers of people in the business. He's created champions at every level in the business. He's been a champion himself. Career Cutco sales in excess of $88 million. And last year in 2018, his office was the number one office in the Northeast region and set an all-time region record. So John had his greatest year in his office in his 25th year of running an office. John's also the author of 2 books, No Shorts, Flip-Flops, or Sunglasses, How to Get and Make the Most Out of Your First Real Job. And he's also the author of Deciding to Thrive, Lessons Learned in My Search for the Meaning of Success and How to Sustain It. I'm really excited to have John as a guest today. He's been a colleague and friend of mine for many years, competitor for many years, and I know you'll get a lot out of this interview. John, thanks so much for making some time.
Thanks for having me on, Dan. I really appreciate it. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit about how you got started with Cutco and Vector. It was back in December of 1991. And tell us a little bit about how that unfolded.
Yeah, I started on my winter break from college. I really thought this was going to be a 3-week gig for me. That was 27 years ago. I just never left. I did finish college, but I was able to do Cutco part-time around college, full-time on my breaks. When I started my winter break, I was staying with my mom in her 2-bedroom apartment. She had 1 bedroom. My sister had the other bedroom, which meant I was on the couch. And so it was an interesting, kind of dynamic in trying to get this started and sleeping on my mom's couch. But I worked hard over my break, worked hard throughout the semester. I quit a job at school that my dad had helped line up for me in the university law enforcement department to do this. He thought I was a little nuts when I told him I was going to do this instead. But I made enough money over my first semester that I was able to, live on my own and continue working with the company. Got promoted to assistant manager that summer and just stuck it out, and they kept promoting me and I kept moving up the line.
Awesome. And this is while going to college. You went to Lock Haven University, graduated there with a degree in management science. What have been some of your more transformational experiences or most important experiences during your Cutco Vector path?
Well, I would say probably, so in our company, we have a Silver Cup, which is the highest award you could win. And so winning a Silver Cup was an exciting time in Vector for me. But what has since surpassed that many times over are the people that I've helped win Silver Cups.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool. It's cool to be a winner, but when you're like coaching people, mentoring people, and then they're going out, they're achieving success, they're winning the company's most elite awards, that is probably the most rewarding experience that I've had with the company.
Yeah, I think that concept resonates with a lot of people. A lot of people that I've talked to have commented that their own personal achievements they're great and they're nice, and obviously it's a big part of building your career. But the real cool part is when you get to see the people you're developing achieve and grow and do great things, and just how rewarding that can be.
Exactly.
What were some of the challenges that you faced in the early days of your career, either as a rep or the early days as a manager?
When I was a new manager, probably the biggest thing I struggled with was just the idea of helping somebody really create success. My productivity was not very high compared to other offices, and so I struggled with that for a while until I finally started reaching out to the top people in the company, and I found out that people were genuinely willing to help out and answer any questions that I had, no matter how many questions I had or what the questions were. And by really trying to study that aspect of the business that I was struggling with, I continued to improve and improve and improve until I started breaking records myself.
That's outstanding. So it was the reaching out to others that created a whole lot of impact, and I think that's a great
So
resource we have.
yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the idea of I can figure it out. I'll figure it out on my own. But there's just no reason to do it that way when you could shorten a learning curve by talking to other successful people.
Yeah, and I've always told people when you if you get in a habit of consistently reaching out and asking for input, asking for feedback, what's going well, you'll hear a lot of the same answers over and over again, but that we need that repetition in order for us to really internalize the ideas, in order for us to really buy in so that we do those things regularly.
Or
So,
sometimes somebody will just say it a little bit differently. It's the same material, it's packaged differently, and that's the one that clicks, resonates, and sends you, out into the world to make it happen.
yeah, that's where it triggers. Wow. Awesome. Awesome. What are some other lessons you feel like you've learned along your vector journey?
I think about things that I was not particularly, it's good to focus on your strengths, but I've also found that by spending time, certainly in our off seasons, focusing on the things that you want to improve upon, that's been a big lesson for me. And I found there's two ways to do it. One is reaching out, which I already mentioned. Sometimes though, there are just certain things that I know I'm just not going to get as good as somebody else. So I would try to hire somebody that was good at those things, put them in a position where they could do those things for me, whether it was, maybe they were more enthusiastic than I was, and they were able to really drive that aspect of the business when I'm more reserved. So I would hire people that were kind of strong in certain areas that I was not, and put them in a position where they could lead. And then I was able to coach them using my own style, but helping them with their strengths to really shine and make our business combined together as a partner almost great.
Yeah, has that been a key throughout the years in your office? Is just having a staff that complemented your strengths and that had people who could bring some things that maybe you weren't, you didn't bring at the highest level to your team and to others?
Even to this day, I'm trying to find people that are excited and smarter than me, which that part's not that hard to find, but that really have a passion for learning. And if I could surround myself with enough people like that, I know that we can achieve success in our business.
It's interesting that you reference yourself as not being enthusiastic or anything like that, because I think that we all display enthusiasm in different ways, and my feel of you is that you do have enthusiasm that you display just differently than other people do, maybe not outwardly. I also think you're one of the funniest guys I've ever met. You're hilarious. So you're definitely really, really a fun person to interact with and to be around or follow.
Well, I tell a lot of jokes that sometimes it takes people a few minutes to get, so I don't get the immediate laughter sometimes. So I have to surround myself with people that first off laugh at my jokes, and then secondly, can connect with people in a different way that I do.
Yeah, that's interesting. Who do you feel are some of the key people that have impacted you along your journey?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, the CEOs of our company have been great. I mean, they're what's unique about our company in that aspect is that the CEOs, they know me, they know my wife's name, they know my kids' names, they know my story. So Albie, Leonardo, Bruce Goodman, John Welpley, they've always been very, very big and very helpful in my life. And then also, my direct region managers, whether it was Tom Cannon years ago or Earl Kelly more recently right now, and John Kane, who's like the right hand of our CEO, those people within our company, and all the DVMs. And I mean, it's such a company where people want to share and help each other. There's no even in competition, it's not cutthroat. It's, hey, I want to do well, but let me help you do well too. And I think that's one of the things that's unique about Vector.
I can remember, John, us competing, you and I, back in, 01, 02, 03, somewhere in there. And we talked occasionally, and we would, help each other with questions and things like that. And I can remember in 01, my office broke the all-time company record. And then in 02, you raised the bar higher and broke the all-time company record. And I just think it's cool that people who are competing at the highest level in a company can have that sort of dynamic where we are in a way rooting for each other to do well, because it just helps elevate everyone else.
Absolutely.
So I
didn't beat you by much, by the way. It was a narrow one the next year, but we kind of went back and forth for a while there, where it was almost like we were taking turns whipping on each other, but hanging out and trying to make the business better.
Yeah. So I interrupted you though in the midst of your answer about other key people.
Yeah, when I think about key people in my life, I can't not mention my parents, and I feel very fortunate that my mom has been an integral part of really who I've become. She's so good at connecting with people, and she can just talk to anybody. She'll talk a stranger's ear off, and that's a trait that I got from her that I didn't get from my father. My father, on the other hand, though, has been so supportive over the years, except for when I told him I was going to quit that job that he got for me. But after he got through that moment, he's been very supportive. And there was a time when I wasn't sure I wanted to continue working with this company, which I would say that everybody goes through that no matter what job they have. And I went through it here, of course. And he was a big part of talking me out of that. And he said, this company has been so good to you. You love it there. What are you talking about? Like, he couldn't even wrap his brain around the concept. And that was a big part of me saying, like, yeah, what am I thinking? How about if I dig in and make it great again? So.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting that your dad was one of the key people that helped influence you in that regard. Tell us about that time in your career. You must have been feeling like you were struggling a little bit or not at the top of your game. And what was it like that led to that conversation with your dad?
Well, I probably went through this twice in my career. Once as a young district manager before I got promoted, and it was actually our CEO, Al DiLeonardo, that took me out to dinner and reminded me that I was pretty good at this and gave me some coaching, some personal one-on-one coaching that led me to a division manager promotion. And then the second time I was a division manager, and what had happened was I felt like my peers were passing me by. And when I reflect back on specifically how I got to that point, I stopped taking control of my own personal growth. I kind of figured like I had the business, I figured it out, I know how to do everything. There's no room for me to grow here. And then once I got into this mode of not trying to improve myself, not reaching out to people anymore, I started seeing people just kind of pass me by in numbers and in attitude, as a matter of fact. And it was a conversation with my father. It was a conversation with a few key people in our company that I started to realize that I could turn that around if I wanted to.
And what were the steps that led you to turning it around?
Well, once I decided to do it, once I made the decision to really make a change, I had to come up with something that I wanted. Everybody wants everything to change quickly, and I wanted things to change quickly. And I realized, or I thought at the time, that I had to change who I was in order to turn things around. So I decided to read 50 books, self-help, mentoring, leadership style books in a year, 50 books in a year. And what was really neat about that, first off, I was a slow reader. Fortunately, one of the first books that I read had a little blurb on there on how to be a faster reader. So that really got me kind of going a little bit faster. And we fly a lot, so I got to read on airplanes. But what I found out in reading those books was that I had the wrong goal. My goal should not have been to change who I was, but to find out who I was and become more of who I already was. And once I understood that had to be my mission, that's when I really started to grow and gobble up the books. And then the second thing was just sharing that with as many people as possible. It's one thing to read a lot, but if you don't share it, why are you even doing it?
Yeah. So as you're reading the books, you were offering up the lessons with a lot of your people at different meetings and events, and that helped you internalize the concepts and put them into action.
And it was amazing that sometimes I would just be on a phone call with a manager that was struggling in some area, and I'd be like, "Oh, I just read this in this book. I got to share it with you. And I would go and I'd grab the book and I would share it with them. And, you know, and I was able to make changes in other people's lives just because I was working on me. I was focused on, so at first I'm like, is this a little bit selfish to take all this time? Because, you know, while I would take my son to read 50 books in a year is, you know, it's not like I stopped working, stopped being a dad, stopped being a, you know, a husband, stopped everything else that I had going on. So I still had to do all those things. So I was reading, you know, while my kid was practicing soccer and other parents were really into the soccer practice. I would watch the games, but if it was practice, I'd read to get through this project that I had for myself. And it was really neat, the amount that I was able to impact other people. And I realized what I was doing was not selfish at all because of the number of people I was able to impact. I actually started to feel bad for people that had worked for me years ago because I realized that they didn't even get the best me that I could be. And here I finally give it out, you know?
Yeah. You know, that resonates with me really well, John, just the idea that I look back and I say, you know, that year or that stretch, was I really my best, or, you know, did I give people my best? And, I always felt like I tried hard. I always felt like I, you know, brought the best I could to each day. But I think that this whole idea about, you know, constantly learning and growing brings out the best in us is so powerful. And I think that I can relate to the idea of going through periods where, you know, I wasn't doing that. And I don't think I was able to deliver on the promises to my people in the best way possible. So it's just powerful that's what, tell me more about this idea that you learned that you had to become more of who you already were. Versus changing yourself, you know, tell me more about that.
That was a theme. Yeah, it just kept popping up in several different books. And I think you could read a book and a couple of years later, read it again and get a lot of different information from it based on where you are in your life. So where I was in my life, I guess I needed to hear that because it kept popping up that was what I needed to focus on, was becoming more of who are, because we all have greatness inside of us. I mean, we're engineered for success, period, at anything we want to do. Maybe not everything we want to do, but certainly when we're focused and passionate about one thing. And kind of as you were describing earlier, I felt like I was trying as hard as I could. So that just led to more and more frustration. And I think that's when people start to feel kind of burned out. They use the word "I'm burned out."
Yeah.
And I don't love the phrase "burned out." I get what people mean when they say it, but I think sometimes they use it as a crutch and instead of as a launching pad to figure it out. And whenever I hear somebody say "I'm burned out," I challenge them to say, okay, do you want to continue to feel that way, or is there a different way you'd like to feel? And if you can get people thinking about how they want to feel, that's what I had to do for myself. I was thinking about, how do I want to feel? Where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And how do I want to feel? And once I got my feelings in check, it was a lot easier to not feel burned out, because who wants to feel that way?
Right. That's a powerful insight. Just getting people to think about, how do you want to feel in those moments of burnout? So I feel like burned out is an excuse a lot of times, and it's just it's the thing people put in their mind to justify mediocrity, or when they're just not performing up to the level they should be, and they say, well, I'm burned out, that's why I'm not on my A game or doing my best. But getting redirecting people's thinking to how do they want to feel and what would lead them into that direction is a good answer. And I know that just the concept as simple as reading books. I know that when I'm reading or I'm listening to audios or I'm learning something, I feel more inspired. I feel more energized. I feel a lot more enthusiastic about my days. And that the natural byproduct of that is that we do better at all of our day-to-day interactions. So
yeah. Plus, you have so much more to share with other people. You feel like you have more to offer as a leader, and that's, if you ever get to the point where you don't, I guess you always know that you have stuff to offer if you've been doing it long enough. But if it's not fresh, if it's not new, another thing I did was I rewrote all my talks. I'd kind of been regurgitating the same material for years. And I just made the decision that I was going all new all year. And that made it exciting for me, but it made it so exciting for the people I was around too.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, you've been such an amazing developer of people in the business. I know that you've developed something like 5 division managers in the business, numerous
Mm-hmm.
champions at every level of the business. And you're looked upon as, one of the all-time great achievers in the history of this company, right up in the stratosphere of the very top achievers ever. What are some of the qualities or traits that you strive to instill in the people that you're working with now?
Probably the biggest key, in my opinion, is really the relationship building. And we all know the old saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, but that's got to be lived daily with your people. And I try to get them to do that with their people. If it's the concept, I think, that John Maxwell says, that a great leader knows what's in the hearts and minds of their people. And if I ever catch myself wondering, I wonder how that person's feeling right now, then I know I need to get a call with that person. And I'm trying to instill that in my people as well, that if they can think in those lines, they're going to build great, long-lasting relationships for that will really last a lifetime. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
That's a powerful one. Just the idea that a great leader knows what's in the minds and hearts of his people and or her people, and the idea of relationship building. What about some of the other personal characteristics that you try to help people to develop or bring out in themselves?
One of the things that, I don't know if you would consider it a personal characteristic, but something I've been working on with my team for this year, as I have a lot of younger, newer, first-time managers, is the idea of taking some time each week, and they can do it monthly and quarterly, or however you want to look at it, but to analyze their business, put together an action plan, and then execute. So we call it APE, APE, analyze, plan, execute. And I start sending them, there's an APE emoji. Every once in a while, I send that out to remind them that they've got to analyze, plan, execute, analyze, plan, execute. And I found if you say something enough, it finally gets ingrained into their brains where they start to do it on their own, and they start sending you the plan. Hey, I was looking at my numbers. This is something I can do differently. Here's my plan. Now, the other thing I got to work on is making sure they execute, because it's great to put a plan on paper, but if you don't do anything about it, then you don't get anywhere. But that's been really big for us.
Indeed. I love that. APE. Analyze, plan, and execute. John, I can assure you that there are going to be vector managers all across the country, a month or two from now, sending APE emojis out. So
great. I can't wait to receive my first APE.
that one is going to catch on for sure. Analyze, plan, and execute. I feel like every great division manager in the company is adept at making sure their people do exactly what you just said. All of our district managers are typically young entrepreneurs, and many of them running a business for the first time. And in a lot of cases, they don't know like some of the most basic things. They just sold a lot of Cutco, and they're good at teaching people maybe as an assistant manager, and they have a good personality, and we felt like they could be a good leader. We give them an opportunity, right? But there's so much development that has to happen, and this is part of why I think many managers struggle at some point during their first year or second year as they're kind of growing up in the business. Is there's just so many things they have to learn that they didn't even know they didn't know when they opened their office. And a great division manager has the wisdom and the depth to be able to help people to develop the tool of analyzing on a regular basis, and then planning, and then executing on the things that they know to do. And that third part is certainly is a big one that not everybody does, is doing what they already know to do. So so I like that.
A lot of books written just on execution alone, because it's sometimes it's the hardest part. It's great to analyze and plan, but if you can master it, making yourself execute even when you don't feel like it, you're gonna start feeling like it. It's kind of like acting your way into feeling.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about your latest book, John. It's called Deciding to Thrive. I know it's been out for a few years now. What are some of the key tenets or principles in the book that you would like people to hear or learn about?
Well, probably the whole purpose of me putting the book together was, well, aside from leaving a legacy for my kids, but I went through that time that we talked about where I was struggling, and I wasn't just struggling in business. I was struggling personally, emotionally, family stuff, all these different areas of life kind of coming at me, and not feeling like I was complete. And the book is about how I got out of that, made the decision, and how any one of us in a moment can make a decision, put together a plan, execute that plan, and design the life that they want to have. And because of that, I became a better husband, a better parent, better in business. We went from last in our region to top in the country, where I was able to take on a second division. And the book is about the pathway to make that happen. And I always tell people, you don't have to read 50 books in a year to do it. I mean, most people don't read one. So if you read 6, you probably would be, or listen to the audios or eat podcasts like this. I mean, all these things make a difference as long as you're sharing them with other people. And they don't have to be people you're in business with. They could be family. They could be, I took on some community work with our local charity called the Children's Dyslexia Center, which, by the way, 100% of the proceeds from both books that I've written has all gone to the Children's Dyslexia Centers of Allentown and Philadelphia here in Pennsylvania.
Cool.
So, what better way to help a kid who's learning how to read than by donating the money from a book that you wrote?
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. Tell us more about what's in the book and what people could learn by studying your story or learning from your nuggets.
Yeah, I try to package it in a way that when people read it, they would be able to say, okay, I can relate and I can do this, because we've all had a point in our life when we were stuck and we just needed to figure out a way to get out of it. And, for me, there was a realization one hot summer day where we were at the pool, and one of my nieces was trying to get all the boys in the pool to make these waves. And she's like, come on, boys, let's make waves. And they were having such a great time. And I realized that that's kind of missing from my life a little bit, this idea of making waves. And so I said, what can I do to have more fun? And so one of the concepts I talk about in the book is the idea of, hey, I bet I can make you smile. And it's just a little game that I play. I don't say it out loud, but I think it. I wonder if I can make that person crack a smile. So I could be at the grocery store, and the grocery store clerk, maybe they're not smiling, and I just think, oh, I bet I could get them to smile. And I'll just say, I don't know what, but I'll come up with something. And it's like my challenge to try to make people smile when I'm around them, when I talk to them. And one of the keys to being around a long time is, if people are excited to see you, you're gonna want to be around for a long time. So I think that's a fun way to go about life. That's one of the concepts that I like talking about.
Yeah, that's really cool. Just the idea of how we impact people, I think, is so powerful. And I do think there's a ripple effect that goes on, that when you make that grocery store clerk smile, it just might affect somebody else, that affects somebody else, that affects somebody else. And the overall impact is powerful of our vibe and our energy and what we bring on a daily basis. You've got the 50 books in here, and we'll put the list in the show notes, by the way. So if anybody wants to see the actual 50 books that John chose to read that year, they're in here. Do any stand out to this day? I mean, I know this was years ago. Do any of the books stand out to this day that really impacted you the most?
Yeah, for sure. And as you look at the list, I starred, I think, my top 10 favorite, I believe, in the list as well. But, I think about the 4-Hour Workweek, which was kind of a funny that was the first one I read. It kind of gives you an inside look at where my head was at the time. If I was thinking about trying to shrink the whole work week down to 4 hours, But when you dig into the book a little bit, that's not really what it's about. All right. That's not really what it's about. But that's where I got the speed reading tips and just really some of the ideas on delegating a little bit better than I had been delegating. Probably the most powerful book I read was a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. She's a Stanford professor. Yeah. And a lot of the books that I ended up reading, I saw them mentioned in several other books. And that's one that is probably the most mentioned book out of all self-help style books that I've ever read. It's great if you want to be a better parent. It's great if you want to be better in business. Another great book was You Already Know How to Be Great by Alan Fine. And that's probably the best coaching book that I've ever read. So if you want to learn to get better at mentoring or coaching other people, it's really about how to bring out the best in others. And I do a lot of coaching calls using the methods in that book that I think are really powerful as well. Those are three that just jump out at me, but there are several others, but that would get anybody started.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I know that when I heard you talk about this, I was intimidated by the idea of reading 50 books in a year, but I just committed to myself that I'm going to at least read one book a month. I'm going to at least read 12 books a year. And I can honestly say that before this time, I probably went through a number of years where I don't think I read at least 12 books every year. I think I let my personal development game atrophy a little bit. And you inspired me to make sure that I got back on it. And I know that I've read at least 12 books per year since then, probably 16 or 20 books a year since then. And I just got to tell you, one of my favorite ones that came out of your list was a book called "Shit My Dad Says" by Justin Halpern.
Yeah,
you remember that one?
Fantastic book. Oh yeah, by a guy who's he was tweeting, shit my dad says, and then he finally put it in a book, and it is hilarious.
It's one of those books that I think you read in an airplane and you're bursting out laughing in the middle of the airplane, and literally people are like looking over like, what are you doing? What are you reading? But it's burst out loud laughing funny. So if anybody needs help like getting interested in reading again, like pick up that one, and you won't be able to put it down, and you'll enjoy it so much you'll probably be on to the next after that.
I'll get two quick tips on reading, if it's okay by you, but I don't think anybody should. Well, by the way, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, I took the 50 book challenge and I'm going to do it, which is great. And I've had lots of people do it. And it's definitely a worthwhile endeavor. But I tell people, if you read 6 or 12, you'd be ahead of most people and you'd really feel like you were growing. And for me to get through 50, it was 15 minutes every morning. It was an hour every night. And then I would finish the book over the weekend. That was my goal. And I got done in 49 weeks. I read the 50th book. And then the other thing is that if you're not reading a fiction book, you probably have to read every chapter because you're going to miss something important. But if it's a self-help style book or book on motivation or coaching or something along those lines, every book, except for the 2 I wrote and maybe the Bible, has a chapter that's just not worth reading. So just skip it and go to the next one. Like if you get to that point where you're stuck on the book and you don't even want to pick it up again, just skip that chapter, go to the next one, and it's okay to do that. And I committed to reading every book cover to cover that year because I wanted to really say that I actually did it, but I don't do that anymore. I don't read any book cover to cover. I'll skip a chapter if I'm not into it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that you can even read a lot of the books out of order. If they have a table of contents, you can kind of scan down it and see like what catches your eye and start in the middle, and get hooked on it, and then maybe go back and go back to the beginning. But or you may never go back to the beginning. You may just jump around. So I think that is okay with a lot of self-help books also. So cool. How about your first book, No Shorts, Flip Flops, or Sunglasses, How to Get and Make the Most Out of Your First Real Job? Anything you want to say about this one?
Yeah, it's a great book for anybody just graduating high school or college. It really will walk you through, or even somebody just getting started as a vector, but it'll really walk you through the things that you need to be looking for when it comes to work, when it comes to building your resume. I think a lot of people just don't know how to build the resume. And the title, the reason why we use that title is Vector Marketing and Cutco. We're probably one of the only companies on earth that would allow somebody to walk into their office wearing shorts, flip-flops, sunglasses, really not dressed for a professional interview, and still give them a shot, because we know that we're going to teach them how to succeed in life. We'll teach them the things that they haven't been taught yet. We'll pick up where whomever left off, and we'll get them to cross that threshold. Yeah. And there's a lot of networking stuff in there too, and resume workshop type stuff too.
Yeah, there is a quote in there that really resonated with me about networking that literally has been a life-changing concept. And your quote is, networking is not about what others can do for you. It's about what you can do for others. Yeah. And that quote really just got me thinking about, how can I add value to as many people in my network as possible? How can I give of my resources, give of my time, give of myself without expecting anything in return, knowing that when you do that consistently for a long period of time, there will be many returns that will come back your way, but giving for the sake of building relationships.
Yeah.
So that was really powerful.
Yeah. And on top of that, while you're doing that, because you're going to get to a point where the conversation's slowly coming to an end. And if it's somebody you really want to network with, my favorite question that I think catches people off guard a little bit, but they love the question is, what can I do to help your business grow? And if you've really been listening and really trying to do the relationship building, it could be a little bit more specific. Like if they're in, I don't know if they sell light bulbs, what can I do to help your light bulb business grow? And most people will take a step back and say, let me think about that. Sometimes they'll have an answer. Maybe they'll want you to speak. Maybe they'll want you to set up a follow-up, get coffee, whatever the case may be. It's sometimes, most of the time, they don't really know, but they're so appreciative that you ask. It's an opportunity for you guys to exchange cards. I think that's been probably the most powerful question that I've learned to ask when networking with somebody.
Yeah, that's a great one, John. I like it. Awesome. Well, John, this podcast is about changing lives, and as you look forward into the years ahead, how do you aspire to change people's lives through your work or through your influence?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say one of the things I talk about in Deciding to Thrive is that the past is not your fault, but the future is in your hands. And I think if people could, embrace their upbringing or where they're from or whatever the case may be, and kind of put the past in the past, but realize that the future is totally in their hands. And we have the power in any moment of decision to get on the path of greatness. Every person listening to this podcast has their own form of genius. And I think we need to really try to figure out what that is and run with it. And then the second thing I would say can be summed up in 3 words, and that's lead it better. If we can make it a mission to lead it better wherever we go. For example, my son loves to go fishing. My daughter's kind of into it, but not as much, but she loves to go because she can hang out with us. And when we take the kids fishing, we'll, go to our favorite fishing hole or go to the favorite wherever. And there's always some trash on the ground. And I talk about leaving it better. And so we pick up the trash and we throw it out. And they see me do this. I'll be in a parking lot somewhere. We're going into a restaurant and I'll see a piece of trash on the ground and I'll pick it up. It's better than stepping over it, but I'm trying to show them that you don't have to use millions of dollars to leave something better. I mean, you can leave it better by example. Another way we've been leaving it better as a family is by donating. And it's not always money. It's been donating a lot of time to certain charities, actually quite a few different ones in our area. And I think that when your kids especially see you donating, when the people on your team see you donating time, energy, effort, they see you picking up that piece of trash. They see you, even in my office, little things I'll do that you wouldn't expect the owner to do. But I think if Howard Schultz walked into a Starbucks and he saw, a table that wasn't clean, he'd clean it. I think he would clean it. So, that I think that's a concept that I would love for people to really embrace. I think it would move the whole world in a better place.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I had an interview with Andrew Bosworth, who's one of the top executives at Facebook, and I was asking him about Sheryl Sandberg, who's the COO, very famous, could be considered the most powerful woman in America, or one of them. And he said something about her. He said, she says nothing at Facebook is somebody else's problem, and that everything that you notice, like it has to be fixed. It has to be taken care of right away. And then you notice that it should be improved. And I think that if people look at the world that way and realize that issues in the world are not someone else's problem, that we're all here to improve our environments, our circles, everywhere we go, and leave them better. If everybody does that, it's like the value that is out there for people to have just multiplies exponentially, and we all have a better experience of life. So I think that's an awesome lesson.
It can feel a little selfish too, because you do feel better when you're doing things like that for other people that can't possibly repay you.
Indeed, and it does make you feel good, and that's part of, I think, the upward spiral that you put yourself into when you have that approach on a day-to-day basis. So,
Right on.
John, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it. Having worked with you for many years, I found you always to be a real genuine leader, someone who I feel like has a extremely high level of respect from all others around you. I think anyone who knows you would say that. And when I think about this concept of leave it better, I'm sure that all the people that have come across you over your career are better for it. And your impact has been felt far outside of the Northeast region throughout this entire company. And the ripple effect of your leadership is going to go on forever. So really want to acknowledge you for all the awesome work you've done, and say thanks once again for joining and imparting your wisdom on our audience here today.
I really appreciate it, Dan. And I want to tell you, the feeling is absolutely mutual. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, but 100%. So, but thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome, John. Awesome. John Wasserman, ladies and gentlemen, you can see why he is one of the most respected leaders in the entire Vector Marketing Cutco organization. I love where John said that in any moment you can make a decision that will change your life and lead you in a positive direction. That there doesn't have to be some big event that happens in your life to get you to make that decision. Some of you listening could make that decision today, that you are going to move your life and move your business in the kind of direction that you want to move it in. And taking control of your personal growth being one of the keys to that. The idea of reading, of course, listening to podcasts. We hope that you listen to all of these. Something as simple as the business analysis idea, APE, analyze, plan, execute. Are you doing that regularly? Networking, right? And beginning to build a powerful group of others that can help you. John posed the question about, what you can do to help others. And I find if you ask it, what might I do to be able to help your business? What might I do to be able to help you? If you ask what might, people tend to be more forthcoming with ideas or answers to that question. I love where John said, your past is not your fault, but your future is in your hands. A powerful concept. And as you venture off into the rest of your day, in honor of John Wasserman, I challenge you to leave it better everywhere you go. Thanks for listening, everyone.